Chapter 8.6, Solving Equations. Okay, in this section, we will solve a quadratic equation or an equation that contains a variable. So we will use the principle of zero product, okay, zero product rule. Okay, this is zero product rule, which means we have a product like A times B. A times B, this equation is equal to 0 because the left side of the equation is a product, the right side is 0. That means in order to make a product to be 0, 8 times, one of the factor has to be 0. So 3 times 0 is equal to what? 0, right? 0. Or 0 times 3 is equal to also 0. So if a product is equal to 0, then you can set each factor equal to 0. So A times B is equal to 0 means A is 0 or B is 0. So for example, let's say here is x minus 3 times x plus 4 is equal to 0. So in order to make this 0, that means each factor is equal to 0. Either the first factor is 0 or the second factor equals 0. So if you set the first binomial is equal to 0, then what is x? Then x will be 3, right? 3. So 3 minus 3 is 0. So x equals 3. Then from the second factor, if you set x plus 4 equals 0, then x should be negative 4. Okay, so this is, so if an equation, okay, one side of the equation is a product and the other side is a 0, then we can set each factor equal to 0 so that we can solve for the variable from each factor. Then there will be the solution of this equation. So make sure, this is a really important concept. If a product is equal to 0, then set each factor is equal to 0. A is 0 or B is 0. So here is the steps in solving a quadratic equation by factoring. It doesn't have to be a quadratic equation. If an equation can be factored, then we can solve for x, for the variable. So the first step is always rewrite the equation so that it will be in the standard form. Rewrite means move all the terms to one side, to the left. So the right side of the equation is always 0. And then the second step is, once you move all the terms to one side, then factor that side. So factor that polynomial. And then once you factor it, make sure set each factor equal to 0. Set each factor equal to 0, and then solve for the variable from each factor. Then that will be the solution. Okay, so let's try some examples. Okay, let's find the solution of this equation. Okay, the question is solve the equation. That means we want to find the values of x so that the equation is always true. Okay, solve the equation. So when we solve this one, make sure rewrite the equation. Collect all the terms to one side. So let's move 6 to the left so that the right side of the equation is always 0. Because we want to factor the left-hand side of the equation. Factor the polynomial. Okay, the second step is factor the polynomial. Can we factor this? Okay, so this is x times 2x. And 6 is 3 times 2. Then we gotta put the negative sign. Let's put it on 2. Then this cross product is 2 times 3. Sorry, we better switch this one. This one does not work because this is 6x. This minus 2x is 4x, which is different from the second term. So let's use 2 and 3. 2 and 3. 2 times 3, and then put the negative sign on 3. Then this will be 4x. And this product is negative 3x. and the sum is x, which is the same as the second term. So from this we can rewrite the equation. So the left side of the equation will be the binomial in the first line, and the second factor will be the binomial in the second line is equal to 0. So the trinomial now written as a product, and then next step is what? Since the left side of the equation is a product and that is equal to 0, we can set each factor equal to 0. Okay, so we have now two terms. So we can set x plus 2 is equal to 0 and 2x minus 3 is equal to 0. So from the first factor, minus to each side. Okay, let's try minus to each side. Then x equals what? X equals negative 2. So we have one value of x, one of the solutions, x. Okay, and from the second equation, plus 3 each side, then 2x is equal to 3, and divide each side by what? 2. So we have two solutions. One is x minus 2, x is equal to negative 2, so that's negative 2, and then the other one is 3/2. Okay, the final step is check this answer, but in this case you don't have to check because there is no restriction for this equation. We know that there's no restriction, so there are two terms, two solutions, negative 2 and 3/2. Okay, let's try another one. Okay, this is problem number 1. Okay, this one is already written in the standard form because the right side of the equation is 0. And we have binomial on the left side. Okay, it looks like difference of squares because we have x squared. So let's factor out the greatest common factor from the left hand side. So 2 is the common factor, then this will be 2 times x squared minus 50 will be 25 is equal to 0. Then this binomial is difference of squares. 25 is 5 squared. So we can use a plus b, a minus b. Then 2 times x plus 5 times x minus 5 is equal to 0. Now we factored completely the left side of the equation. So from this we can set each factor equal to 0. Okay, 2, as you see this 2 cannot be a 0. 2 is always 2. So we cannot make it 0. So leave it. Leave the factor. And x plus 5. We can set now x plus 5 is equal to 0. And then x minus 5 equal to 0. So from these two, we can find the values of x. So from the first one, x plus 5 is equal to 0. From the second factor, second binomial, x minus 5 is equal to 0. So from this, minus 5 each side, then x equals negative 5. Or, okay, plus 5 each side, so that x equals 5. So we've just found two solutions, negative 5 and positive 5. So these two are the solutions of this equation. So once you plug in this 5 and negative 5, then the equation will be true. Okay, the second example is that we have an equation. The left-hand side of the equation is already factored, and the right side is negative 10. But unfortunately, we have to distribute this and then refactor because the equation, the right side of the equation has to be 0. So once you move negative 10 to the left, then already the left-hand side is not 0 actually. So okay, if you move negative 10 to the left, then that will be plus 10. So the right side is 0, but the left side is not factored. So in order to factor the left-hand side, we have to distribute first, and then simplify, and then factor it again. So use the FOIL method to distribute this product. X times x is x squared. Next one is negative 10x. This is negative 3x. This is positive plus 30. Okay, then simplify the left-hand side. X squared minus 13x plus 40 is equal to 0. Okay, now we simplify the left-hand side of the equation, so we can try factoring. We have to factor these ones to find the solution. So let's try using factoring. So x squared is x times x. 40 is 5 times 8. And the result has to be negative, so we can put both negative. So negative 5 times negative 8 is still positive 40. So this is okay. Then this product is negative 5x. This product is negative 8x. The sum is negative 13x, which is same as the second term. So the left-hand side is the product of these two binomials. This is equal to x minus 5 times x minus 8 equals 0. So from this, we can set each factor equal to 0. So let's write two equations. From the first factor, x minus 5 is equal to 0. And from the second one, set x minus 8 is equal to 0. Then plus 5 each side. So we have x equals 5. Or plus 8 each side. Then x equals positive 8. So we have two solutions. X is 5 or negative 5. Sorry, 8. So if x is 5 or 8, then the equation will be true. So there are two solutions. Okay, let's try problem number 2. Okay, still the equation, the right side of the equation is 52, so we can make it, we should make the one side is equal to 0. Then if we move 52 to the left, then it is minus 52, and the left side is not a factor, or it's not a product. So what we have to do is distribute everything and then factor it again. So this will be x times x is x squared, and the second product is minus 7x, this plus 2x, and this one is minus 14 minus 52 is equal to 0. Okay, simplify this equation. Then x squared minus 5x, the minus 66 is equal to 0. Okay, so the equation now contains trinomial, and let's factor this trinomial. X times x is x squared. Okay, negative 66 is 6 times 11, and then we can put the negative sign on 11, so the sum will be negative. This is 6x, and this is negative 11x. So sum of this product is negative 5x, which is same as the second term. So 5x is same as the second term, minus 5x. So the left side of the equation will be the product of these two binomials. So this will be x plus 6 times x minus 11 is equal to 0. Now the left side of the equation is a product, and that product is equal to 0. So we can set each factor equal to 0, and then write the equations for these two factors. So x plus 6 is equal to 0, or x minus 11 is equal to 0. Then minus 6 each side, then x equals negative 6, or 11 plus 11 each side, then x is equal to 11. So we just found two solutions. X is negative 2 or 11. So once you plug in 11 or negative 6, then the equation will be true. Okay, example 3 is an application problem. Okay, for this application problem, we have to understand the question and then write an equation. Okay, the question is the sum of the squares of two consecutive positive numbers. Okay, look at this. The consecutive positive integers is equal to 130. Okay, the definition of consecutive, what do we mean by consecutive positive odd integers? Consecutive integers, but they are odd numbers. Then we can write it like this. Let's say, odd integers are 1, 3, 5, 7, and so on. They are odd integers. So we don't know which integer it is, but so let's say n is the odd integer. N is an odd integer. I don't know. It's some number, some odd number. The consecutive means next to each other. So for the odd integers, the second number is always 2 more than the previous integer. Always 2 more than the previous integer. So let's say n is the first integer. Then the next consecutive odd integer will be what? Plus 2. 2 more than the previous one. So that will be n plus 2. So let's say n is the first positive odd integer. Then the consecutive second positive odd integer will be n plus 2. So if n is 111, if n is 111, then the next odd integer will be what? 2 more than this one. So n plus 2, which is 113. Okay. So let's say n is the first odd integer, first positive odd integer. Then n plus 2 will be the second positive odd integer. So we want to make a sum of the squares of these two. So the equation will be this. Sum of two squares. Squares of the first odd integer and the second odd integer. This should be equal to 130. So we just wrote an equation. So can you see this? So n is the first odd integer. This is the first positive odd integer. Then this will be the second integer. Second positive odd integer. Okay, this time it has to be positive, right? Positive. Okay, so the sum of squares of these two consecutive positive odd integers is equal to 130. So we have an equation like this. So from this equation, let's find n. Okay, let's solve for n. Okay, in order to solve this, we have to do what? Collect all the terms to the left. Collect all the terms to the left, and then factor the left-hand side of the equation. So right side of the equation is always 0. So for this, we have to distribute. So let's distribute the second term using the formula. And do you remember the formula? A squared. Okay, a plus b squared. Then this equals to what? A squared plus 2 times ab, 2ab. Multiply everything and b squared. So the first one squared, the second term will be 2 times a and b, and the last term is b squared. So n squared plus 2 times ab is 4n, multiply 2, product of 2n and 2, plus 2 squared is 4. Can you see this one? Okay, if you can see this, then let me rewrite it. Okay, 2 times ab, plus b squared is equal to minus 130 is equal to 0. Then n squared plus 4n plus 4 minus 130 is equal to 0. Okay, now combine the like terms. So 2n squared plus 4n minus 126 is equal to 0. Okay, now we just simply rewrote the equation, and the left side of the equation is simplified. So we have a trinomial on the left hand side of the equation. And then let's factor this equation. So this trinomial has a common factor, which is 2. So factor out 2, then n squared plus 2n minus 63 is equal to 0. Okay, let's factor this trinomial. So n times n is n squared. 63 is, let me rewrite this 63 again. 63 is 7 times 9. And then we gotta put the negative sign, so put it on 2. And this will be negative 7n. This product is 9n. The sum is 2n, which is the same as the second term. So this trinomial is a product of these two binomials. So if we rewrite it, then this will be 2 times n minus 7 and n plus 9 is equal to 0. Okay, still keep going. We want to find the values of n. So set each factor equal to 0. As you see, 2 cannot be a 0, so ignore the number 2. Then from the first binomial, n minus 7, set this binomial equal to 0, and set the second binomial factor equal to 0, and then find n from each equation. So n is equal to 7 or minus 9 each side. Then n is equal to negative 9. So now we have found two values. One is n is positive 7, and the other value of n is negative 9. If you see the question, we are looking for positive odd integers. So we don't want negative number. We don't want a negative number, so eliminate negative 9 from the solution. So the solution is n equals 7. That means the first integer is what? First integer is 7. Then what's the next consecutive integer? Next consecutive integer 2 more than number 7. So that will be 9. So we want to find those two integers. Two consecutive positive odd integers will be 7 and 9. So this will be the solution. Now negative 9 is not a solution. So those two positive odd integers are 7 and 9. So if we plug in, if you make 7 squared plus 9 squared, is it 130? It should be, because 49 plus 81, that is equal to 130. So this is true, right? Yes, this is true. So the answer is 7 and 9. Okay, this is problem number 3. This is pretty much similar to the previous example. Okay, the sum of the squares of two consecutive positive integers. Okay, now there are two integers which is positive integers. This is not odd integers or even integers. So if you see this, two consecutive integers are 1, 2, 3. They are consecutive positive integers. So if you keep going, then let's say n. Okay, so this means the next integer will be 1 more than the previous number. Always 1 more than the previous number. So let's say the first positive integer is n. Then next one will be what? 1 more than this one. So it will be n plus 1. Not n plus 2. Because this is consecutive integers. So we are dealing with only positive numbers. So whenever you have a negative number, then eliminate that number, that negative number. So we must have positive number, and then two consecutive integers means always 1 more than the previous number. So once we find n as like 6, then the next number will be 7, something like that. So let's write an equation. So this means the equation, the sum of the squares of these two numbers. So the first number is n, so n squared plus the next consecutive positive integer will be n plus 1, and square this number. Then the sum of these two squares will be 85. So we have an equation. We just set up an equation. So solve this equation for n. Okay, let's solve this one. So move everything to the left. So 85 moves to the left and minus 85. So once you move a term to the other side, then always change the sign. Then distribute. Remember the formula, a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. So 1 squared is 1. And then simplify, combine the like terms. 2n squared plus 2n minus 84 is equal to 0. So now the equation contains trinomial. So let's use factoring using our combination method. So 2n squared is equal to n times 2n. And 84 is, okay, let's try 6 times, 84 is 6 times 14. 6 times 14 makes 84. And the product has to be negative sign, so why don't we put the negative sign on 6? So that this will be negative 12n, and this product is 14n. We have positive 2n. Okay, so 2n is same as the second term. So this trinomial is a product of the first binomial and the second binomial. So this will be n minus 6 times 2n. Actually, we could factor out 2. But still okay. Plus 14 is equal to 0. If you didn't factor out 2, then you can do it now. So from the second factor, you can factor it out 2. N plus 14 is equal to 0. Okay, then this one is equal to, so we can set each factor equal to 0. So set this factor equal to 0 or this one equal to 0. Then we can find n. So n minus 6 is equal to 0 or n plus 14 is equal to, once you factor out n, factor out 2, so this will be n plus 7, right? N plus 7. So 2n times 2 times 7 is 14. So from the first equation, plus 6 each side, then n equals 6. We have found one value of this n. And from the second equation, minus 7 each side, then n is negative 7. But as you see this, the consecutive integers are positive. It has to be positive. So we will not allow the negative number. So n is what? N is 6. Then what's the next integer? The next integer will be n plus 2, which is 6 plus 2 is, why 2? 1. Sorry, 1. The next consecutive integer is 1 more than the previous number, so that will be 7. So the solution is, the two consecutive positive integers are 6 and what? 7. So let's check if this is correct. Let's check. Okay, check. So the sum of squares of these two numbers, 6 squared plus 7 squared, is it equal to 85, right? 85. Is it equal to 85? Okay, 6 squared is 36 plus 7 squared is 49. Then this one is equal to 85. Yeah. Okay, for this problem number 4, the length of a rectangle is 3 meters more than twice the width. So let's say this is the width, then the length can be length L. Let's say L is the length. So the length L is 3 meters more than twice the width. So twice the width is 2W plus 3. So whenever you have a more than A then, more than less than, so A more than B, then the expression is B plus A. So write down the second expression first. If you have A less than B, then the expression is what? B minus A. So twice the width is 2W, right? And then more than, so since you have a then, we have to write 2W first. So that's the length. The area is given. The area is 90 centimeters, 90 square meters. So the area formula is what? The area formula is length times the width. So the area is given, so use the area formula, which is 90. And the length is, we can use 2W plus 3 and the width. So from this equation, instead of using L, we better use the expression in terms of W. So the equation must have only one variable. So let's simplify this and then factor. Then 2W squared plus 3W, use the distribution, and then move 90 to the other side. 2W squared plus 3W minus 90. Then factor the right side of the equation. So W times 2W. And 90, negative 90, we can try, okay, let's try 6. So 90 is 6 times 8, 18, right? I'm sorry. 6 times 15. Okay, 6 times 15, and negative sign should go on 6. So this will be negative 12W, and this product is, okay, this one is 15W. The sum is 3W. So we got the second term. So 3W is the second term. So this trinomial is the product of these two binomials. W minus 6 times 2W plus 15. From this equation, we can set each factor is equal to 0 to find W. So from the first factor and then second factor, set first factor equal to 0 and the second factor equal to 0. Then from the first equation, W is 6 or 6 meters, or from the second factor, then minus 15 each side. Then 2W is equal to negative 15. Then W is negative 15 over 2. Now W is the width. So since we have a width is negative, and negative is not a solution, so eliminate negative number. So the only value of the width is 6. So the width is 6 meters. Then what is the length? Length is 3 more than twice the width. So the length will be 2 times width is 6 plus 3, 12 plus 3, so that is 15. So the length is what? So from this, the length is 15 meters. The length is 15 meters, and the width is 6 meters. So that's the solution.